What's up, builders? Today we're going to be doing another 5-minute tutorial to see how you can change your kits from looking like this to looking like this. And that's all done through a technique called pan aligning. Let's check it out. So first things first, what exactly is pan aligning? We'll go ahead and use this master grade tall geese that I just built up before this video as an example to show what exactly the difference pan aligning can make for your kits. Pan aligning, as the name would suggest, is a process where you line the panels of a part. This gives it an added depth, an extra layer of dimension, and also the illusion that the part is actually separated in areas where it isn't. Because these kits are made out of plastic, there are a lot of limitations to the details that can be added, at least in production. However, with customization options like pan aligning, we can always make it a little better. So there are actually 3 different methods that people commonly use to pan align. These include either using Gundam markers, paintbrushes and paint, or quill pens and paint. I don't have any Gundam markers in this video because I don't really prefer the look that Gundam markers give a kit. They're good in a pinch, but in my personal opinion, I just don't prefer them. However, we do have some Tamiya pan aligner as well as a quill pen ready to test. So let's go ahead, switch to our top-down view and check it out. Here is our master grade tall geese. As you can see, a lot of white areas. In those white areas are little details engraved into the plastic. Those are what are known as our panel lines. So those are going to be what we're going to want to fill in to give that extra depth and extra character to the kit. So I actually have 3 different Tamiya panel line colors right here. I have gray, brown, and black. Each of them serve their own purpose, but if you can only afford one of them, I'd say go with the black. Let's go ahead and dismember this guy for a moment. Here I'm going to show you the importance of colors that you choose for pan aligning. So we have this leg right here. We have the areas that we want to paint. First off, let's use the Tamiya pan aligner brush. Before we get into it, real quick, just some things that you'll need for this tutorial. Of course, you'll need either some pan aligner or some paint. You'll need some thinner to remove some excess, and I'll talk about this a little more later. You'll need some Q-tips to help with the cleanup, maybe not this many, and of course you need a kit to pan align. So let's start with some black Tamiya pan aligner. First things first, we're gonna shake it up just to make sure it's evenly mixed. And as we pull the brush out, we're gonna wipe off the excess on the side of the container. Now we still have a healthy amount right there on the tip. That should be enough paint to seep through our panel lines. And all we're gonna do is be very careful and dip it right into the panel. We're gonna do that as many times as necessary, trying to go as few times as possible. As you can see, the panel liner does crawl across the part a little bit. That is what is known as capillary action, where due to the surface tension of the liquid, it clings to the walls of the plastic and starts to spread out. And we're gonna repeat the process in all of our areas that we need to pan align. In my opinion, you can be a little messy, but it's better to be as neat as possible. Then one step I like to do that isn't necessarily necessary, I like to let it dry. If you let it dry, it's less likely to smear and you'll get a cleaner result. Now, as it dries, let's talk about our thinner choices. This right here is what I use most often for thinner. This is the Mr. Color Lacquer Thinner from Mr. Hobby. I've pan aligned multiple kits with it and haven't had any issues with cracking or anything so far. There is another thinner out there, Tester's Enamel Thinner. This has a lot of negative feedback with pan aligning, at least with Bandai kits. What happens is it ends up making the plastic crack, and that's not good. It makes the kit fall apart. So I would advise you stay away from this. One thing you can do to test out if a thinner is good for your kit is to pour some out in like a little dish and put some plastic from the runners in there and see how it reacts. If it cracks, then probably stay away from it. If it doesn't, then you should be good to go. But like I said, Mr. Hobby Mr. Color Thinner has been working for me for a while and I've had no issues with it. Now our part has dried sufficiently, so we're gonna move on removing the excess. I have a smaller bottle here just to make it easier to dip the cotton swab in. Now what I'm gonna do is go ahead, soak the cotton swab in it, then I'll get a paper towel and drain out the excess. Oh yeah, you're gonna need paper towels for this too. So now I have my thinner saturated cotton swab and I have my part with excess paint on it. What you're gonna wanna do to prevent taking off paint that you don't wanna take off is you're gonna go perpendicular to the lines. So by that, I mean, if this line is going this way, then I'm going to wipe this way. And there we have it. So just comparing it to our original part, it already looks way better. Definitely looks like it's an actual panel there. What we're gonna look at now is the difference in color choices for the plastics. So for this part, I'm gonna repeat the same process, but with a gray panel liner. And I'm also gonna use a quill pen just to show you the difference, if there even is any. Now as I let this part dry, let's talk about the choices of color. So generally, black panel liner will technically work for everything. However, if you use it on colored parts or lighter parts, it does give it a more animated or cell shaded kind of feel, just because the lines are a lot darker and they look less like shadows and more like defined lines. A popular color with white parts would be gray, just because it is more subtle and gives a more shadow-like appearance as opposed to a defined line. With reds, people tend to use either black or a dark brown. Blue and gray parts will use a black panel liner, and yellow parts will use a brown panel liner. It's very subtle, but here's an example of what brown panel liner can do for a yellow part. And so there is the difference between using black and gray on your white parts. Let me know down below if you prefer the look of the black panel liner or the look of the gray panel liner. I think they definitely both look good, but depending on how you want your build to look, you'll probably end up choosing one over the other. Let me go ahead and panel line the rest of this kit, and then I'll get right back with you. As I'm panel lining, one quick excerpt I wanted to talk about was using a quill pen. Now I prefer using the quill pen as opposed to the paintbrush, just because it can actually get into tighter areas a little easier, and there's a little more control in actually using it and how much paint you're applying. However, there is a learning curve. You kind of need to learn exactly how much pressure to apply in order for the paint to actually come out. But once you learn that, it's pretty much smooth sailing from there. And here's the finished product, guys. Definitely not perfect, but in my opinion, still a lot better. If I took a little more time and didn't rush it for the video, I probably could have gotten better results. But let's take a look at a few key places here. Here on the thighs, we do have a lot more definition. This one still has a little bit of the black panel liner left. I tried to gray it out, but I couldn't get it all the way out. And in the face, we can actually see the face now. I used a little bit of black on the sides of the helmet. I kind of wish I went for black on the face as well, just to define it a little more. Another prominent area is here on the back. As you can see, there's a lot of panel lining there that would have been left pretty much blank if we didn't panel line it with the gray panel liner. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the tutorial. Like I said, of course you want to take your time with something like this. The more you rush, the sloppier your results are going to be, and in the end you might even have to be redoing all of it. So take your time, find a pace that works for you, and go ahead and start leveling up your build. One final note I do have to mention for the video: whether you're using thinner, Gundam markers, panel liners, enamel paint, just double check and make sure that it is compatible with your kit. Like I was saying with the enamel thinner, this stuff can really destroy your kit, so you want to be careful. So if you're unsure about whether or not something will work for your kit, you definitely want to try it out on some random runner plastic. Or if you want, you can even just top coat your kit first and then panel line that. The paint would protect the plastic, so you'd be fine. Anyways guys, hope you liked the video and I hope you learned something. If you're new to the channel, feel free to like the video, drop a comment, and subscribe to stay notified for all my future videos, including tutorials and reviews for new kits. Anyways, if you're tired of your kits looking too boring, grab some panel liner and start building. Well, start panel lining.